Hey everybody, it's Alex here. Time check is 6:35 p.m. here in China. That's a Beijing and Chongqing time check, and we have a UK time check coming up from AJ. AJ, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining today. And wow, weather's still nice here. How is it going over there in London?
Hey Alex, how you doing?
Great.
Weather's quite good actually. Not too hot, not too cold, but it's getting colder. That's the major problem. Just want to give a big shout out to all the moderators out there, like Bridget, Quantum, Dark Cloud. If I missed anyone, I'm just checking. And
Yes. Okay.
yeah, and
AJ,
those are the three, and
AJ,
everyone else that's joined as well. Yeah, go on,
can I ask you
go
a
on.
question, AJ?
Sure, sure.
How are you managing there with the British pound that has been absolutely pounded?
I know. I warned about this, and the pound has absolutely been destroyed. I mean, I remember going to the United States 15, 20 years ago, and the pound was $1.6, and it used to buy me a lot. And I used to think, oh, United States is really cheap. But now it's pound is absolutely dead, and it's going to get worse, Alex. As you know, Liz Truss, it's all Liz Truss's fault. And you have Kwasi Kwarteng, who's been touted as the most cleverest guy in British politics. He's got a
Right.
PhD in economics. He studied in Harvard. He studied in Cambridge. He was in University Challenge. I don't know if you know University Challenge. There's like a really major game show for really talented kids. The
Mm-hmm.
UK's brightest and best kids go
Right.
to University Challenge. So he was on there. So he was really really bright, and in his first week he absolutely destroys the economy. his 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 idea is let's borrow some more money. Let's borrow 200 billion. Oh my
Oh
God.
man.
I mean, anyone can be a chancellor. I could be a chancellor tomorrow and borrow 200 billion. I mean, come on. He doesn't think about balancing the books in any way.
Mm. Well, a lot of interesting news to tackle here. We've been away for a week and we're back, and we're really excited to have the audience here. So, thank you once again for everybody that's joining the program from all audiences here. I'm Alex with iChongqing here today in their wonderful studios here as well. I just want to say hi to a few people that have joined today. Hello, Hang. Thank you again for joining. Bridget, nice to see you here, and thanks for moderating. Dark Cloud as well, and a lot of notable names that tune in to see us. Thank you so much. We appreciate your support, and thank you for becoming subscribers to all our channels. Now, there's something that I'd really like to kind of touch on first, and then we're going to move into the geopolitical landscape. First of all, that hurricane that was hitting the East Coast in United States of America. We do have some reports on that. I believe. I'm not sure. Are you following that at all,
Yeah, I've seen the
AJ?
news this morning. Yeah, I've seen the news. I've seen a lot of cars and buildings flooded.
Mm.
Yeah, so it doesn't look good, Alex. It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, I usually follow some of these channels, and the thing is that this went right over there. Now it's very early morning there right now. I believe it's, let's see, what time is it? About 6:30 a.m. in New York. So it's normally the next day is where you see the effects, the
Mm,
catastrophic effects of something like this magnitude can have. Of course, in the Florida Panhandle, it's known to be in the path of a lot of hurricanes, but we just wish everyone safety that's living in that area. And sometimes that is definitely not something you want to wake up to, a hurricane, that's for sure. I was caught in one down in Mexico in my late teen years, and it wasn't fun at all seeing everybody
mm.
boarding up the buildings.
Yeah,
Moving forward with the hurricane, I wonder who's in the business of sabotaging
pipelines.
pipelines.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I just want to say how sad it is to see all of that marine life being killed
mm,
and all of that methane being released in the atmosphere.
mm,
I mean, look. The United States has not even been denying it. I mean, the press secretary said yesterday when somebody asked her, did you blow up the pipeline?" Her answer was, "Oh, Russia and Germany are not even using it anyway." She's not even denying it. She just said, "Oh, it's not being used." Well, let me tell you something, Einstein. Even if it's not being used, where the hell did all this methane come from? You
Mm-hmm.
know, it
Mm-hmm.
is destroying the atmosphere, destroying I don't know how. It's like a mile long now. You imagine all of the marine fish and marine life being completely destroyed. It's absolutely sickening.
Hmm.
Whoever's done it, but the fact that the USA is not denying it, it just makes me think they had something to do with it. And the
You know
fact
the
that
fun.
they
Yeah.
did, I think they must have told their allies like Germany and Poland, and the fact that EU is not blaming Russia. I mean, only the media is blaming Russia, but the actual EU leaders are not blaming Russia. Then you have the
Mm-hmm.
Polish minister saying "Thank you USA" on his Twitter. So it makes me think that maybe USA had something to do with it. They've told their close allies in Europe, "This is what we're going to do," and that foreign minister let the cat out the bag, I think.
Yeah, it's been pretty doom and gloom. We did see a small bump up in the financial markets last night, but this morning, if you're a future or option trader, um, the market's getting smoked again. And
Yeah.
I told you guys this a week ago that we're continue, and this isn't financial advice at all, but watching this market, geopolitical wise, there is no good news on the horizon. And when you consistently see these banks, these governments moving up the interest rates, the lending rates go higher, the mortgage rates go higher, people default, economies, stock portfolios get sold off. We're in that right now. I mean, this market has a long way to climb if it's going to go green by the end of December here. So I mean, it's got a long way to go. I think we're flirting with the 3,600 mark on the S&P. The support is around the 50. Let's see, 3581 is where most of the support is coming. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to see. People are being pressured on their mortgages, raising interest rates, stock portfolios getting smoked. And now let's throw in the energy crisis, which was created and could have been completely avoided if people followed the agreements, the Minsk agreement back in 2014 that was brokered by Germany and France at the time. And Mr. Poroshenko had signed that. Wittingly or unwittingly, I'm not sure. But, well, look where it's brought us to. Fast forward 8 years later, and we have four regions that have voted for to become part of Russia. And I think we're going to see some movements here from the Kremlin probably tomorrow to basically sign the dotted line and move forward to that. And then that is when when I spoke with Patrick Lancaster this morning. For all you know, Patrick Lancaster is a crowdfunded independent journalist who is located in the Donetsk People's Republic, or should we say Russia now, depending on who you ask, depending on what country you're from, and depending on whose tax dollars that they are spending of yours. But this, he was saying to me that there's been nonstop tanks coming into Donetsk, and it seems to be that this situation could get a little bit hectic here in the next 30 days. I think it's game on, to be honest with you, AJ. And yeah, this has really cost the energy prices now. I mean, what do you do when you've blown up a multi-billion-dollar pipeline, one and two that was completed but then disintegrated? What do you do? What are your options? They not lied to the public about
Mm.
having full reserves allowed to get them through the winter and into the summer? Have they lied to their citizens of their country?
Yeah,
That is the important
of
thing to
course they
ask.
lied. Yeah, of course they lied. I mean, there are actual reports on how they messed about with the maths, and they're saying all of the papers are going along the lines of 85% full, but it's actually not 85% full. It's actually around 35 to 40% full, and they've been completely messing around with the maths. So somebody got it wrong. One person got it wrong, and all of the papers went with it. And that's how Western media works. One paper reports it, and the rest of them follow like sheep. They don't do any of their own investigations. So that's false. I mean, if it was true, then why are German companies struggling? Why is German lights off? You know, already people are struggling in Germany, and not only Germany, but also in Europe as well. Companies are moving out. But you're right, Alex. It's absolutely crazy. In Britain's situation, we are. Last night, the Bank of England had to come in and buy its own bonds because it couldn't find anyone to buy these bonds. And this is what happens when you start making an enemy out of Russia, when you start making an enemy out of China. Nobody wants to buy your bonds. I mean, USA is not going to buy British bonds. USA's dollar is very strong, so they're going to avoid British bonds. Everyone's going to avoid British bonds. But what other countries would have bought it? China would have bought it just to help. If things were going along well with UK and China, of course China would have helped. Like China's been forgiving loans to Africa. They've been forgiving loans to Iraq, for example. If you're a friend of China, they will help. They will come in, buy bonds for you, and help you. But Britain decided to make an enemy out of China, and now nobody wants to buy the bonds because it's absolutely crazy. And if they didn't buy their own bonds, the pension fund would have crashed in UK. And
Yeah,
today, I
let's.
believe. Yeah, so they had to kind of come in, and it's going to get worse, Alex, because now that these pipelines have been blown up, the gas prices are going to go higher, which means the inflation is going to go higher, which means the interest rates are going to go higher, which means more pain for everyone.
You know, AJ, I really feel for the viewers of tonight's program. And I sympathize for the frustration that everyone is going through here. I can't tell you how frustrating this is to watch living here now in China, in a country that is absolutely not getting in the way of this mess, hasn't got involved in this mess, haven't dragged its energy departments into this mess, or the governments. They have basically said, use diplomatic channels, which the European Union, pretty much the UN, doesn't want to do. No one in Europe, no one in the collective West wants to sit down at the table and negotiate, or at least come to some sort of a peace agreement. No one. Not a single country out there. That, first of all, is frustrating. Why do countries like United States have embassies, diplomats all over the world? What are these guys doing right now? If not, they're not doing anything, fire them. Cut them out of your balance. Tell your government, fire them, let them go. What are these consulates still doing open in Russia? What is the Estonian consulate, the Lithuanian, the Latvian, the Polish, the French, the Spanish, the German? What are they doing open in Russia? Shut them down. I mean, you guys have canceled that country completely. To be clear with you, AJ, there is no way back. It's the way forward now. Pipeline's
Exactly.
gone. Any type of relationship that was agreed upon for decades, since the Soviet Union broke up and new relationships were formed, business relationships, they're severed, they're gone, they're finished, it's over. Do you think Russia is going to allow the SWIFT banking system to come back into their country? Not a chance. Do you
Nope.
think they're going to be happy bringing Visa and a MasterCard and American Express back in there? Not a chance. Unless all that money that they have stolen from those bank accounts is returned. But then again, hey, I robbed you. Maybe I'll give you the money back, but please trust me. Not happening. So you've got countries that have also broken diplomatic channels. That's incredible. And it's showing that Russia very clearly cannot trust anyone
Yep.
except China. Now, where is China fit in all this? AJ, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be very clear with you. I've been here during the year, during the we'll call it the war, or what other people call a military operation. I've been in China the whole time. There's two things that I haven't had to worry about. One is inflation. Of course, the other one is safety, knowing that this government's not going to walk itself or follow itself or be pushed by the collective West into getting into a war. China has not done that. Again, we've seen it happen in Libya. We've seen it happen in Syria. We've seen it happen in Iraq. We've seen it happen in Afghanistan. And the list goes on and on and on. I would be absolutely frustrated as a taxpayer on any of these countries that our viewers are from. It really blows my mind watching this happen, seeing this happen, being your countries, your very countries, the leaders that you voted in or didn't vote in, have dragged your country into recessions, into a global energy crisis, into a conflict, which, hey, the last time I checked, Europe's going to need natural gas, and it's going to need oil, and it's going to need wheat. And there is no solution to this. That's frightening, AJ.
Exactly. I want to take you back to history. In 1519, Hernan Cortes arrived in the New World with 600 men. And upon arriving, he burnt all of the ships. And he turned around to his men and said, "You know what, guys? There's no turning back." So, we are seeing a complete burning of the bridges between the West and Russia and the East as well. And I think we're going back to how the world used to be like. The world used to be run, the economy used to be run by natural resources, and this is why, when you look back in history, this is why the Europeans have been such colonizers, because they know they've got no natural resources within their soil. So they had to go to China, they had to go to India, they had to go to Africa to steal their natural resources. And this is how the Europeans built up the economy. And now it's all going to come crashing down, because what have the Europeans got now? They've got no resources. They've got no links to getting resources. They can't get it from Russia anymore. And
You know what else they're missing?
you go on.
Credibility.
Exactly.
It's gone.
It's all crashing down, Alex.
Whatever ounce of credibility
Yeah.
these countries had. I lived in Europe for 20 years. And I'm just without words, AJ, on what on earth has happened here in the last 9 months. Wow. And even during the pandemic times in their peaks in these countries, they really showed their true colors. And why would you take hundreds of millions of your citizens of your country and drag them in to this mess? This was created. This was created not by, of course, there's conflicts happen, but that's just look at history and look at the maps. I mean, conflicts are conflicts, but man, it is absolutely frustrating to see. Absolutely frustrating.
Exactly,
My.
Alex. And I've never thought in my lifetime I would see such incompetence by the leaders. It's just watching a ship sink before my eyes, an unsinkable ship. It's just it's crazy. I mean, I've been obviously living in UK all my life. I've never ever witnessed such bad leaders, such bad management, the lies, the propaganda, the manipulation. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life, and I'm absolutely shocked, Alex. Quite ashamed to be British as well. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, I'm doing everything that I can in the next 90 days to get my mom out of Canada. And you know what's amazing is you hear all these stories on the news of, we'll call them BBC hit pieces about people coming over from Asia and being rescued and telling their sob stories. Well, I got a story to tell you, and this one's true. When you see your parents' pension disintegrate and they're wearing 2 jackets in the house, maybe sleeping with an extra 2 blankets at night because they have to keep their temperature. The maximum they can pay to keep their heat is, I think, 66 in the house to keep them warm, because if it goes any higher, their pensions are gone and not even have enough for food. Things are getting pretty damn bad. Do I want to keep my mom in that environment? Love Canada, great country, but sorry guys, you screwed up. And you got involved in something very, very nasty. Why haven't we learned that we should never get involved with stuff like this? And again, it's happened. It really is frustrating. The other thing that I want to really kind of bang home to people is that when you see situations like this, you think our governments would learn. I mean, look at Russia. Okay? They've pretty much been sanctioned into an oblivion. I mean, the West is out of bullets.
Yeah.
And these guys, do you think they're really going to go home? And you know what? Something funny. I never thought of this. I never thought of this for a second. But it's strange because you see all this conflict going on. The Zelensky government, he's wanting more arms. I think is there a day that he's on TV where he says he doesn't want more military equipment? Or is that just a soundbite now? Send me more equipment. You know what I mean? Is it send me more equipment?
Well, I think USA has secretly been sending military aid. I think I saw an article yesterday that they've sent $1 billion more, and last week they sent $3 billion. They are secretly just passing on without.
True.
And it's not hitting the news. It's not. You really have to dig deep to find this information.
Well, $3 billion is not a shocking number, AJ. I mean,
yeah, I think in total, I was watching.
It's over 100.
I think it's about 67 billion they've sent so far. 67 billion.
The U.S., right?
The U.S.
I'm talking the whole collective thing.
The whole
we're talking
world,
over 100 million.
Of course, over 100 billion. Yeah, definitely. I mean, don't forget all of this money. Some of it is loans as well. So
of course it's loans.
They're not going to see
loans.
this money back. They are not going to see when the day when Ukraine collapses. Do you really think a collapsed country is going to say, "Oh, we'll pay that money back"? No way. If there's a different government, or if there's a coup in Ukraine, they're going to say, "The hell with the West, the hell with USA."
Yeah, no.
It kind of
works. It kind of works like this. The paperwork that I've been privy to, kind of now. Some of this stuff we can't verify. I think if there's a few people here that have read Zero Hedge, some of the stuff is very accurate on there, and some of it is la la land. Okay. I'm not saying that it's 100% website that you should trust its credibility, but there are some things that they get totally right that are shocking. And one of them is that the U.S., when they lent the Ukraine a lot of money over the last, we'll call it actually 8 years, a lot of the state assets, when it comes to collect this money, a lot of these state assets are already sold off. And there are some promises, which, once again, Zero Hedge writes some pretty wild stuff. But a lot of it is attached to, okay, you owe us X billion. We will take this electricity plant, and that electricity plant will give a little bit to your economy, but for the next 20 years, the revenue stream comes to Company A. Company B is the restoration of your, railway tracks. That will be outsourced to a company in this country, B, and so on and so forth. And C, while we're at it, to protect these new assets, we will request that we put 3 to 5 new military bases on your soil. So that's kind of, we'll call it the deal with the devil. But here's what I wanted to tell you, that it's funny and not funny in the same part, is that when you think about how this conflict is going, it's like both sides are shelling each other, okay? But think about this. There is no win here for the Zelensky government, because if he's shelling his own country, which he says he will fight to the last Ukraine to get that territory back, the territory that he's spent $100 billion to destroy, he really wants that back? Well, the missiles are going the other way. So, in fact, this is a country that has actually destroyed itself. There's no win for these guys.
Yeah.
So, I don't know why no one in the diplomatic community has talked sense into him. Every time he orders $1 billion, he's just slamming buildings down that allegedly he actually cares for, and that just
None of
proves
that,
it right there.
yeah, none of the money is
What?
going to any infrastructure. It's all going to their pockets. I mean, there's pictures. I don't know if you've seen on the internet. There's pictures of his staff that these are people that work under him, driving around with Ferraris and fast cars. So where they get that money from with the wages of Ukrainian, minister wages? They obviously been stealing that money, but now the West has to put more money into Ukraine now because of Putin's mobilization, which means there's more troops, Russian troops now in the territory which
Mhm.
they've claimed their own, and this means that Russia's going to be pushing more, and the West will have to pay more to the Ukrainian troops or to Ukraine to counter that. And are they really going to do that? Because if they don't do that, this is what's going to happen. Russia's going to steamroll into Odessa. They're going to steamroll in near Transnistria. They're going
Yes.
to carry on taking territory after territory. And what's going to be left of Ukraine is just going to be, I call it the rump steak, a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
rump, a rump state in the middle of the map, with no natural resources, no access to ports, no access to the sea, landlocked, no businesses, no people, because all of the men are being killed or being disabled. Everyone's left the country. All the
Mm.
businesses have left the country. So how are they going to make money? How are they going to pay back? It's like asking for a beggar. If you lend a beggar £10, do you expect that beggar to pay you back? No,
Mm.
they're not going to pay you back. It's like that. And now the West is stuck. They're stuck in a quagmire. They have to keep putting more money into Ukraine because of this deployment by Putin. And if they don't, then the whole of Ukraine will be gone by this year. I mean,
Well,
probably by end of the year.
I think it's already gone, and why I'm continually going down that road where you talk about Alinsky, you got to remember this area that he is shelling are his own people.
Yeah,
Yes, they have Russian ties to them. They're ethnic Russians. But I mean, imagine the scenario in Canada. If Canada didn't, for example, you guys know that we have two languages in Canada, French and English. We've had it for a long time. And we've also had our differences with Quebec in Canada. And there was a vote not too long ago, a few decades ago, on giving Montreal and Quebec its independence. And it was very close. But this is where I want to put people's mind in perspective. If you understand how Canada geographically it is, the West Coast thinks one way, the middle part of Canada, the West Coast thinks like California, the middle part thinks like Texas, and the East Coast thinks like New York. Okay? Now, imagine if an agreement was brokered and signed, and Canada was to, let's say, Quebec wanted to be independent. And there was a brokered agreement, and everything was fine. But then, over the year, there was a new leader in Canada. And let's say he didn't agree with the results of that referendum. And he decided that he would use his military to enforce or take out the airports in Montreal. Well, that's what happened in 2014 when there was the coup in Ukraine. $500 million airport in Donetsk was flattened. You can see the footage all over the internet. Patrick Lancaster was there. Flattened. Completely destroyed. Infrastructure destroyed. Bank machines shut down. Water, electricity, all shut off. This is his own people, okay? These people were part of Ukraine at the time. Immediately when the unelected government was put in there, they just thought that people would just take that, and they're not. So that's why I'm trying to really explain to people that this situation, if it happened in Canada, it would be outrageous. You would never use the Canadian military against its own people. Well, who the hell do you think is shelling Donetsk and Luhansk, where these people at one point had Ukrainian passports, their own army?
Yep.
And the Western countries think this is a good bet to get involved in? Speechless.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. So who do you think blew up the pipeline, Alex? Do you have any idea?
You know, I thought about this all last night.
I thought it was Lithuania or something with some help from the United States, because Lithuania Lithuania are real, Russia haters. They are like really severe haters of Russia.
Well, I would say that's more Estonians.
Yeah, Estonia and Latvia as well. I think all three of them. But they are now using a new pipeline which is coming through Norway, going to Poland, and this opened a few days ago, exactly at the same time as these pipelines got destroyed. And I think it's something to, I think it could be, and where it happened is right next to Lithuania. It's right next to Lithuania's waters. And I think they could have planned this or done something, or maybe used some sort of drones, or maybe borrowed some, or maybe even USA gave them intelligence. I think they definitely had something to do with it. I'm just thinking, they use 0% of Russian gas at the moment, because they sanctioned themselves last year. They said we are not using any Russian gas, so they have completely. They do not use Nord Stream 2 or anything.
But they do have, they do have a big refinery called Mazeikiai Nafta.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to show you something. Let me just see if I can pull it up here on the map system here. Let's just see if I can pull this up on a map for us all to look. Okay, I'm going to share the screen here. So one sec, guys. And this will help maybe put a little bit of water on that scenario. So let's start with the Lithuanian scenario, okay? So the Lithuanian scenario. All right. So let's have a look at this map here. I'm going to just close one of these banners down so we can look at this map a little bit closer. Can you see this area here? Maybe I'll zoom in. Does that help? Can we see that a little bit closer?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. All right. So I'm going to go over it with my mouse. You see how you're following the line there? This is Kaliningrad.
Yep.
Now, Kaliningrad is part of Russia.
Yep.
And this is attached to Lithuania. There's the capital, Vilnius, there. Okay, there's Kaunas and Mazeikiai. The audience is probably wondering why I know how to say all these names. It's because my wife is Lithuanian, and funny enough, guys, I speak Lithuanian as well. I studied it for 2 years in university. Oh, nice. I didn't think it would ever come in handy for a live stream, but here we are. So this is well-known Russian territory here, and you see it's in an area where there's going to be a heavy amount of Russian, we'll say, navy and artillery.
Yeah.
And this up here near Klaipėda, this is called Nida, very low. It's like a sand dune up in here. Okay, it's nice. A big sand dune. So it doesn't really give Lithuania too much real access to getting out there. Okay, now That's not to say that they can turn a blind eye, these guys.
Mm.
So I'm going to throw my hat in and say no on the Lithuanians, okay? But I'm going to get a little bit more interesting here. In
With
this
Latvia.
Latvia is getting interesting now,
Yeah.
okay? And as you come up here, up into Estonia, there's the capital of Tallinn. You see Narvo here in the corner.
Yeah.
That is a border town to Russia. That's how close it is from the capital.
Yeah.
And communication and this ferry line here to St. Petersburg, this is a very, very busy zone, the Gulf of Finland. So my suspicion, not 100%, but I think you're on board with this here, it's got something to do possibly with these three characters here, Finland, Estonia, and Latvia. And the reason why I stress the Finns in this is because isn't it interesting that there is a major contribution coming to NATO from Finland? And wouldn't that be great if they could say, wait a minute, pipelines are under threat. We have to have these waters patrolled more.
Yeah.
That's where I'm kind of going with it. And I understand your thoughts on Lithuania as well. They are a staunch American supporter. Yes, Bush went to the capital of Vilnius and said, "Don't worry, we'll protect you at any cost." And ever since
Exactly.
that day, they've drank the Kool-Aid. But let's have kind of like a mini poll here in the comments and the side box. Who you
Sure.
think is behind it? So we'll go with one. We'll say North American countries because there's Canadian
Yep.
naval ships in that water too.
Yep. Yep.
And there's American naval ships up in that area, and there's NATO all over that area. So
Exactly.
let's see, you guys, girls, everybody, who you think could have been behind this. Was it a country or was it
There could
AJ?
be,
Add to this.
yeah. I was making a video on this, and I was putting all of my prime suspects. Lithuania was one of them, Latvia, Estonia, but I have other wild cards. I have Great Britain because because Great Britain have broke away from Europe, and I just wouldn't be surprised how if stupidly if they did that. Secondly, I think there's it could have been some rogue, you wouldn't, probably not a country, but some rogue elements, some people who do not want peace between Russia and Germany or Russia and Europe. So it could have been some rogue elements rather than a country. And also, there could be countries where you think it might benefit them. Like, I think Iran would be greatly benefiting from this pipeline being destroyed because this would push their JCPOA, because Europe now has got no choice but to broker a deal with Iran now with the JCPOA. And I saw some articles yesterday saying that there's European delegates been sent to Iran yesterday, and they want to try and get this to a close as soon as possible. So I think,
Yeah, it's
there's
very worrying.
there's a lot of candidates, really. You just don't know who exactly, but there could be. It's one of those murder mysteries, Alex. You know those murder mystery shows
Yeah,
where everybody's a suspect.
This would make a perfect board game for Clue.
Yeah.
Get the old board game of Clue out instead of who did it in the living room. We can put the map out there. And what did they use?
Exactly, and every one of those suspects has got motive.
This is troubling because what this does is this. Once I heard that happened, that was definitely, there's a point of no return. There's no returning now. There's no returning, and we've heard the sound bits from the Biden administration. We've heard that, and I mean, these are waters that a lot of NATO control. Sure, Russia is in that area, but just because they're in that area geographically, do they really think that people are going to go out there and sabotage something they built when they could just shut it off? I've never heard of that. Hey, I don't want these guys to drive my car, so I'll blow it up. No, just take the keys away. So it's quite disturbing. Somebody's just saying new NATO members did that. That's an interesting comment, actually. We're still trying to debate who's done it. I don't think we ever will find out who's done it because it's just one of those things that, wow, the timing. The timing.
Yeah, and also, Alex, the United States has been testing underwater drones in that area, and there's proof of that. And I just think that if it was an underwater drone, there is no way of finding out who did it because, from satellites, you can track ships' movements and stuff, but the only thing you can't track are submarines and underwater drones. So if it was done by an underwater drone, there is no way of knowing who, nobody would kind of open up and say, yeah, it was me or.
And it wouldn't surprise me. And we don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Many of the people watching this program, we don't know. But I like that. I'm 99% sure. When we have countries, and there was an interesting comment that was put into our chat here a minute ago, talking about how much money the Americans walked away from in military hardware in Afghanistan. I think it was to the tune of about $80 billion. And the remark from Blinken, the sound bit from Blinken was the following. Well, most of it was either expired, most of it needed new, we'll say either chips or servicing. This is him saying it, okay? Servicing, it needed parts. Some of it's unusable. You're going to leave $80 billion of, I don't care if you leave it in wheat in the country. That country can still sell that, salvage it, do something with it.
Yeah.
And it's still being lethal. And the guy just says, well, it's 80 billion. I mean, it's,
Yeah, it's not about that. It's about the technology, Alex. You're leaving behind that technology. If anybody gets hold of that technology, they can easily recreate all of these helicopters and vehicles and weapons. And if it's in the wrong hands and they they understand how to build these things, then it's just bad news. And a day after Blinken said that, there was pictures or videos of Afghans flying around with helicopters, and and it was absolutely funny. It was just so hilarious. They're flying around with helicopters. They were testing all of these equipment. These were not broken. These are all working, fully working. And yeah, so it's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm just going to look up now the annual NATO budget. NATO has an annual budget and programs worth around 2.5 billion euros. That's what it's saying for budget programs. But what are they actually spending in military hardware? That is the more interesting thing here. I don't think we'll really get to that number. Here it says, in contrast, NATO member states, excluding the U.S., have collectively increased their defense expenditures by 27% from 2014 at 368 billion. So yes, it's gone up from 289 billion in 2014. 8 years later, remarkably, they're quoting 2014. Interesting year to quote. And it's ballooned to 368 billion to become NATO compliant. Amazing. And my country of Canada spends 1.4% of its GDP. Thanks for that, guys. And thanks for throwing a little bit more stress and getting involved with stuff that you guys shouldn't be, but they are. Let's have a look at some of these comments here, AJ, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem.
And then we'll continue on with our conversation. I just want to say thanks again to everybody who has joined this chat tonight. We are trying to make a few changes to the, we'll call it new studio here over the next couple of weeks. I've put in my wanting so much wish list, and that's involved with being able to have another guest sit beside me. There is a few people here locally that will be joining me on the future shows, as well as we're going to be. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, it's turned off in the background there, but do you guys see this? Let me just turn my camera here, guys. I just need to show you guys something. One sec. So in the background here, we have a massive, there's a wall that's in the place there, but there's a massive LED screen behind me here. There's also one in our new studio that's being built there. And it's about, in meters, I would say 5 meters by 4 meters. That's the size of it. It's massive. And we're going to be using it for online graphics. So when we do the shows with AJ or myself or whoever else I invite in to the shows, that we're going to have a graphic team that's going to be putting up the graphics on the screen while we talk. We can also do visuals of walking along, showing big maps on the screen, being able to give you guys a much more content-rich show. We do have the screen. It's already ready to go. We do have the studio. It's already ready to go. What I'm asking or wishing for the moment, and it seems to be getting some support, is to kind of make the scene of the studio a little bit more warm, so that when you guys are watching the shows, that you know that we're taking great care and attention into the shows and making it warm and something that you guys may want to come back to instead of once a week, maybe 2 or maybe even 3 times a week. So that's the goal of the studio. Yes. So we've got some comments here, AJ. I'm going to put them up on the screen. I'm going to blast through a few of them, and then you can tell me what you think. We can answer these. So we got Poland also did some draconian measures. Okay. Here it says, interesting, this happens right after Norway-Poland pipeline is turned on. Okay, that's interesting. But I think also interesting that it's done by a big day coming up here in China on the 16th of October. It's like people are trying to shock the Chinese into trying to get dragged into this. And the Chinese government's more clever than that, guys. It's going to take a heck of a lot more than that. One more question we'll put here. Let's just see. The Quantum says our healthcare is an absolute mess. So I don't know, AJ. What do you think? What one do you want to tackle of that, or do you got some other stuff that you want to talk about?
Well, I can talk about the healthcare in UK,
Yeah.
and you mentioned the military budget. I don't know if anybody knows that Liz Truss has recommended the military budget to go from 1.5% to 3% in UK. And anybody that understands economics is when you look at everything as a pie, if you take one piece of the pie and put more of a slice on another piece of pie, then you're gonna have to take something from somewhere, right? So they will either have to take money from NHS, or they will have to take money from research and development, or they're gonna have to take money from social social living. Money's got to come from somewhere.
Yes.
Or they can just print it all and cause a big inflation, or they can just borrow it like they do. And that's the thing, Alex. It's like they seem to be chipping away on what really matters when it comes to human rights. Human rights, you need to be able to eat, feed your kids, you need to be able to keep warm, you need to be able to have a good healthcare system. If you're feeling sick, you need to be able to feel safe. These are basic human needs, and they are forgetting about the human needs, and they are just putting all of that money on military. They're putting that money on the the banks, because all of this money that Liz Truss is borrowing, there's only one bunch of people that it benefits. These are the rich elites. These are the bankers. These are the rich oil companies. These are not benefiting the British public. This is just something. You know, I, I'm 100% sure that before she came to power, all of these oil barons and bankers went up to her and said, "Look, we look after you. You look after us. We'll make sure you become the next prime minister. You just have to make sure that when you become prime minister, you do this for us, you do that for us." And this is exactly what she's doing. She's getting rid of all of the bonuses for the bankers, and she's getting all of this money she's providing, the 200 billion, is just going to give more profits to the British gas companies. And this is exactly what she's doing. And what's going to suffer is the British people. You have the NHS is going to suffer even more because they're going to have to take money off that. It's becoming a mess, Alex. They're looking less and less after people, everyday people, and looking more after
So bad, isn't it?
businesses and bankers and oil barons. Yeah, it's an absolute mess. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, the only bright spot I thought in news, guys. Let me show you this. This is the only bright spot. This might make you guys chuckle, but sometimes we have to have a laugh. Sometimes, right? So this here, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm just going to pull our graphics off the screen here so you guys can have a look at it. This was a live stream that was actually shut down by Twitch. And it was a live stream of only one thing, of a stove burning gas. And it's saying from Russia with love for $1, €1.44 per month, 24/7. And yes, it was so upsetting that they had to shut the live stream down. Wow. Isn't that amazing how we can get, or certain people can get so upset? Twitch
Yeah.
blocks a channel streaming a gas stove burning on full blast around the clock. We are living in such interesting times when you see something like that get blocked. It's really worrying. And my concerns are it's not going to get better. I can see that the financial markets are still going to be under pressure. If the housing market goes into a decline, there is still a lot of room for this S&P, of course, and the Dow and the NASDAQ to go down. It's a domino effect after that. Once those go down, then the
Yeah.
pension funds get smoked, and they are getting smoked. We are hearing that there is a potential for some margin calls in pension funds. These margin calls are probably stocked to the hilt with security stocks and stocked to the hilt with derivatives against them. And some of these are British pensions, I'm hearing, that are in trouble. It wouldn't surprise me with the fluctuation of the currencies going on in the United Kingdom right now. But once again, here are everyone over the last couple of months saying that China's finished in 25 days. China's finished in 20 days. And here we are. Now,
Europe is finished. UK is finished.
I feel that seeing that a few of these places are starting to open, the restrictions are being lessened in Hong Kong and Taiwan, which is great news. That's good news for, as Kevin put it earlier, the buffer zone, which could be a great idea to reunite families together from the mainland, either in Hong Kong, Macau. We see Japan that is fully opening its doors. But these guys are thinking that the world was actually sleeping a couple of years ago here. If you're Japan and I don't know where your government's been for the last couple of years, but they had strict policies, but the implementation of a lot of these policies didn't work. They had some major numbers of people getting sick in Japan. Now,
Yeah.
that's not to say that the healthcare workers are doing their job or anything like that. Of course, those healthcare workers put their lives on the line to save many people there. But when you don't have an understanding on how to deal with things like this, fast forward China from 2020 to 2022. Out these doors behind me here is a well run operation when it comes to this pandemic. We have a big national holiday coming up here, a huge 7-day holiday. There's going to be a lot of migration going around in the country, but people are on alert. They are told if they're going interprovincial traveling that they must have tests. They are making sure that any hot zones are not open, basically. And what that does is that once again puts a country on alert, puts people on alert. Everybody becomes responsible. They use their apps. You're not going to get onto a train if you have a amber or a red app, red code on your phone. These applications that are used on these mobile phones aren't jokes. They're there to save lives. Technology has saved lives. Now, maybe some people take it for granted, saying, how can an app save a life? Well, it does, and it works. I'll give you an example. If you're traveling to an area where there's an outbreak, let's say even if you're not affected, your code on your phone could potentially turn yellow or even red. And I'll tell you, everybody that I know in this city of 30 some million, they need this to get into the transit system. They need to get into a bank. They need to get into work. You're not going to go many places if you got a amber or red code. And that's
Yeah.
good. And it works. Now, Japan, on the other hand, they tried to implement these systems. Some of them worked, some of them broke down. It was pretty frustrating. But then they went to another model where they said, well, we'll bring in organized tours. That failed miserably. I think only 12,000 people in the end ended up going to that. And now these countries are opening their doors full swing after they've had the let it rip scenario. And here's the disappointing news. A lot of people have gone broke in 2 years and 3 years. A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people have lost their money. A lot of hotels have shut down. A lot of people have gone into debt. If they think that they can open up these economies and they're going to resume the numbers, well, just look at Thailand, who is a tourism country that needs the money, that needs the Chinese travelers. They're quoting 7 million, which I find even suspicious at that number. 7 million annual visitors in the last calendar year to travel to Thailand. Well, if 7 million is their, we'll call it relatively believable number, I think it's more like 4. That is still a massive drop of, well, they did about 62 million to 65 million to the peak. So that's a 90-some% drop. And they're still not going. And they're wide open, AJ. You can get on a plane. You can go to Thailand right now. You don't need any vaccinations, no papers, not just go in there, whatever. The issue with it is that, no, it's not happening. And that's scary. That's scary for a lot of countries that were hoping for that bump. And if Japan's not going to get that bump, then look out. Yeah.
Exactly. And I've heard that Japan has got a huge amount of elderly population as well. So they seem to be more at risk than any other country because of that. And this is why
Mm.
Japan has opened up late. But yeah, I think Alex also. So we also discussed the destruction of like European companies and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that a lot of them are moving to the United States or China, and it's probably a really good time if you have shares in any European companies to sell them off right now because there's going to be a lot of pain in any European company over the next few years. And they're talking about A lot of these companies move into the United States, and the reason it's moving to the United States because obviously the United States still got a lot of leeway when it comes to soft power, and because of geopolitics and things like that. So
Sure.
they will
Sure.
force these companies to move to United States. But there are some companies who have actually come to China, namely BASF,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very one of the biggest chemical companies in Europe, in Germany, and they do things like fertilizers and create chemicals, so everyday products. So it's a massive company. I think they spent 9 billion opening up a new plant in China.
Mm.
But it seems to be they started all of this before all of this geopolitics started, because this plant took a number of years to build, and yeah, so I just think that all of these German companies, if they go to the US, they're just going to be even more in debt, because you're going to have to build factories, you're going to hire local people, and obviously
Taxes.
taxes. Inflation is quite high in United States as well. Inflation is really high. So if you're Volkswagen, for example, and you want to
Mm-hmm.
open more factories in the United States, that's going to cost you an arm and a leg, compared to if you go to China, which is going to
Mm-hmm.
be probably a third of the cost. And I just think that all of this stuff that the United States is doing with Nord Stream, with the fact that all of these sanctions, and the fact that they got Germany and Europe into this mess, all of this was probably planned by the United States to move all of these big European companies across the pond to the United States, so to help their manufacturing, to help their
Mm-hmm.
economy, and completely destroy Europe. I mean, what do you? I mean, there was a Rand report actually mentioned this exactly. That this was exactly the plan. And the funny thing is, Alex, all of these stupid European leaders, they've fallen for it. If that was the plan all along, then these European
Shocking,
leaders
really.
must, yeah,
It's
these European
shocking,
leaders
isn't it?
must be really, they not one stood up and said, "Hang on a second, what's going on here? We need to look after our own economy. What the hell is USA doing now?" And it's crazy, and not one European leader actually stood up to fight for Europe. All of them like just ganging up to see who's the biggest puppet. All standing up saying me, me, me. It's crazy. What are your thoughts on that?
The issue is whenever you see the strong U.S. dollar dominate the world, big problems are on the horizon. I've sent out the warning shots. I actually had somebody say to me, it was a bizarre thing. Two things happened. When the initial pandemic came out, I said that the market would probably get smoked by at least 25 to 30%. And in fact, the S&P did fall, free fall, in March of 2020. A little bit before that, it started off in February, but it free fall by about 42%. And then it had a bounce back. Now, you'll get these people that said, well, it didn't really crash. Right. Like a lot of people have held their investments when they've seen them just absolutely get obliterated going down and they weren't sold out or sold off. It happens. Right now, I think we have a very strong US dollar. That's a problem. That's a problem for many things. That's a problem for their economy. It's and some people think it's great. If you're going to go travel, it's good. You can buy this, and yeah, we can buy, goods a little bit cheaper. But when your dollar is also getting stronger, and your inflation is not coming down, it continues to go up. Well, when they start to balance out this currency, or if they have to step in and balance out this currency, you haven't seen anything yet to inflation on where it could go. So here's the issue. I wish some of these banks, we'll call it reserve banks, would get back into reality and start backing up some of this currency with investments in gold or silver, whatever, not all of it, but at least diversify instead of paper, because paper can be printed. What's it cost to print paper? Pretty much nothing. And when the printing machine's rolling, that's what's got us into this mess. Now, is this a deflection for the economy? I mean, are you a happy person in the United States because the dollar's got stronger, or are you more unhappy that your stock market's off by 20%? Or are you more unhappy that your real estate has fallen by 15%? When's it going to rebound? Oh, the dip, yeah, buy the dip. Or, hey, it's going to go back up. When? What year? There's, no one's got a magic ball, and that's the crazy thing. But here I want to, once again, to really give you my experience being here in China, that there is responsibility. People buy homes here. They're responsible. Yes, things happen. Not everybody can, not every country can have 100% of the people that have taken out mortgages and be able to pay them back. There's going to be defaults. But man, when things get in trouble here, if things are bad here, you can really see from the top down that things quickly get solved. And that's let's use a hurricane, Ian, for an example. I can tell you that if something like that, or something as a catastrophe, or whether it's a natural event that's happened by Mother Nature, ever happened here, you will see the Chinese will always say to the international community, "We got this. We got it. We know it's For example, we're in an earthquake zone here, in we're very close to Sichuan province, and there was a massive earthquake many years ago. But the Chinese, they got it. They got it. They plan ahead. They don't rush into things. They think about it. And that's the country that it's really hard to describe to people that haven't either been here or lived here, is that things get done here. If you have a community that, let's say, a sidewalk needs to be fixed, tell the community, the person that's running that community, whether they're in charge of a 10-block radius or 20-block radius, the job will get done. And so having that reassurance from the top down, knowing that you're safe to walk out at night, knowing that your streets are well lit, knowing that you haven't gone through inflation in the last 2 years, knowing that you haven't been robbed, knowing that you haven't been, your country hasn't been walked into a war. Damn. China's doing pretty damn good, AJ.
Yeah, exactly, Alex. And you know what? Having a strong dollar does not mean good for the US economy, because what this means is your exports are more expensive, and United States is a very heavily export country. So any export coming out of United States will be so much more expensive, which means other countries will be reluctant to buy from the United States. They'll buy it from China or Southeast Asia, wherever that's cheaper, especially in this day and age. And the other thing it does is the strong dollar means that your imports are cheaper, and this means more people are going to be buying goods from imported goods rather than goods that are made at home. So if you have toilet paper, one's coming from China and one's being made at home, your imported goods from China will be so much cheaper. So your imports are going to be so cheap, so much cheaper, which is going to affect your manufacturing, which means you're going to sell less products locally, and your local manufacturers will sell less products, and your exports will be affected as well. So the long term is this is never any good. Having a strong currency is never any good for a country. And I don't even remember the times in 1980 when the United States dollar was so strong. They went and had a meeting in the Plaza Hotel, and they called it the Plaza Accord. This is what they had to bring down the dollar, and that's what they did. And And because of that Plaza Accord, the Japanese economy has been stagnant because they were the main signatories to it. It has been stagnant for over 20 years. So the same thing's happening. The dollar is just going out of control, mainly because there's not enough dollars being circulated around the world. There is a shortage of dollars um, because you need dollars to buy oil, gas, other
Hmm.
commodities. And it's also a very safe currency as well. So in times of economic hardship, every country seems to be stocking up on dollars, and this is why there's a shortage, and this is why the dollar's going up. But it's not good
Here,
for the US economy. It's not good for anyone, really.
yeah, here's an interesting comment by Dark Cloud. I call this the American, we'll call it export goods. I call it the Lego economy. If you see a lot of the things that are made in the United States, they should use the term assembled in the
Yeah.
United States. For example, a lot of the car manufacturers, some of them don't make their own tires, they don't make their own brake pads, they don't make their own glove boxes, whatever. A lot of the stuff has been manufactured, outsourced,
Mm.
either in Southeast Asia. I know Thailand has a pretty big industry for auto parts as well, gearboxes. And what happens is all these goods, they get imported to the U.S. and they get assembled at assembling plants. And next time you listen to the news, when you hear Ford, if you hear Ford assembly plant, that's not necessarily a manufacturer end to end. It usually just means that a bunch of boxes and a bunch of containers are arriving to Ford and they're slapping these parts on. That's why there's a lot of, I believe there's a lot of unfinished vehicles still waiting for parts in the east coast of the United States. And they've actually parked them. I'll try to find the story, guys, but they've parked them, I think, on a raceway or something crazy like that. But anyway, this comment here, U.S. don't export raw goods, they export finished goods. That's correct. For some reason, other countries don't mind paying the higher price for U.S. goods. Well, yes, this is going to happen. Anything gets eaten up, as well as what we've seen here. Another person commented about inflation. So if you got a strong dollar, well, this manufacturing or this assembly, sure, they might win on the imports, but the cost to assemble it and then export it back out is going to be expensive. Just ask FedEx, who has raised their rates moving forward as well. And as well as DHL will drop into line and many of the other courier systems. We used to see a container leave the coast here in China, get to the West Coast for around $3,000. Now we're hearing prices in excess of $20,000 for a 40-foot container. So, yeah, I mean, things are bleak. When will this turn around? I don't see it turning around this year. I do hope that someone is going to break rank in the European Union and say, wait a minute, this is enough of this nonsense, and has enough diplomatic power to get both these countries. And you got to remember, there's not going to be Russia sitting at the table with the Ukraine. It's going to be Russia sitting at the table, and then there's going to be probably another 5 chairs on the other side. One of them's going to be the Ukraine. One of them's going to be the Americans. Probably the French are going to be there. The Brits are going to be sitting at the chair too. And it's going to be probably 5 against 1 in negotiations. And that's the only way out of this mess, because they're not going to let that guy who they've dumped $100 billion plus sit at a table with another guy that could pretty much kick his butt in any fashion. So I still think we're going to see some dark times here, AJ. I am a very, very optimistic guy, a very positive guy. But man, this, just seeing these countries' behaviors has really not inspired me to actually want or have the urge to travel a lot to these countries.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
it's
Yeah.
just it's killed any momentum that I've had. uh, I'm happy traveling inside China. God, I love it.
Well,
But yeah.
nobody's going to come to Great Britain, or shall I say Britain? Sorry, no one's going to come to Britain with the pound falling so badly. So if you're coming from another country, you're going to come to Britain. You're going to find that you actually it's going to be more expensive than you thought because the pound has gone down so badly. Um, but if your currency is strong, then it's probably good news. But I think all currencies are falling the same way as the pound. But uh, but yeah, I think if you look at the visitor numbers in UK, I was looking at the visitor numbers for 2020. I know the COVID hit Britain quite
Mm.
hard, but they lost around 75% of
Wow.
visitors during 2019, 2020. And those numbers you would expect to go up this year, right? Because they're
Hmm.
open again. But those numbers have not changed. They're still 75, 70. People are not coming to Great Britain. People are not traveling here. And it's just people are not even going
Yeah.
much in the United States as well.
But
And
then again, AJ, I need you to help me try to find some sanity when you're telling us that those numbers haven't come back. And travel is a good indicator, okay? The travel numbers haven't come back. So that start from there. The hotels get affected, the restaurants get affected, the blue collars get affected. No one's buying cars. Why on earth are these financial markets even still where they are now? They shouldn't even be anywhere near what they're trading at. When the pandemic blasted through the U.S., well, I'm going to find the low. I think the low was around 2,200 on the S&P. Let me just see. Sorry to interrupt you on that, but I mean, these economies, I think, have a far way to go down. I think they're just inflated. These financial markets are massively inflated.
yeah, exactly. And the fact is, they could stop this at any point. They could easily, well, not now because those pipelines are destroyed, but they could have stopped it any point before. They could have, you know, all they had to do was get Ukraine to promise not to join NATO and to implement the Minsk agreements, and all of this could have been avoided, all of it. And I just don't understand why they're using Ukraine as a proxy war and killing as many Ukrainians as possible, trying to kill as many Russians as possible, and messing about with the world's gas reserves and oil reserves, messing about with the sanctions. And I think this is one sanction too many for the West. They have been hitting countries with sanctions throughout
Mm.
the years. They've been hitting Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, and it's never affected them because those countries are pretty small when in the world economic sense.
Hmm.
And I think they just got too arrogant. They thought, oh, Russia is just a gas station masquerading as a country. Let's sanction it to hell and let's destroy the economy. And I think it's just completely backfired on them, completely backfired. And, you know, I think it's a lot to do with stupidity, arrogance, and all of these leaders. They just don't think. They just do the actions without even thinking, without even planning. And that's where we are right now.
I have a graph I'm going to bring up because this really irritates me here. I want you guys to listen for this here, this comment. So, if you if you put into Google now, you say what was the S&P, and I know I keep going back to the Standard and Poor's 500, but that's the top 500 companies by market cap in the United States. This is a very good indicator. I would say half of these are phantom companies that there's nothing in them except debt. They might have some assets, but debt, absolutely. They all borrowed a bazillion dollars during the pandemic to stay open. Where they went, don't know. And you might say, yeah, but they're trading at $80. Well, so was Enron. So let's look at the S&P. So it says here, what was the S&P low in 2020? They said the S&P touched a session low of 3623, its lowest point of intraday basis since November 30th of 2020. A late rally helped push the index off its worst level of the day. But, here's the but to this, guys. That is actually not true. And I'll show you why. Okay. If you look at the graph here on the screen, and I'm going to just take off our graphic so that you guys can see this. I've been following markets now for 25 years. Have a look at this graph here. And now it's going to be hard for me. I don't think I can zoom in much more, but I'll try just a little bit more. I don't know if you guys can see that. They're talking about the December close. So they're going to go on 2020, the start of the market in January, just before the pandemic, was 3,200. And yes, everybody was happy at the end of the year. It's 3,700. Okay. So you understanding where I'm going with this, right?
Yep.
But let's look at where it bottomed. It bottomed out at 2280. 2280. That's where the market was priced in. Okay. And we are currently at 3719. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. And I'm not guaranteeing that this would happen, and I don't want it to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if things continue to be depleted with mistake after mistake after mistake in the global markets. It wouldn't surprise me if we tested those levels again here in the next year or two. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I was looking at a lot of stock market YouTube channels, and everybody is just saying to sell it, sell. Do not buy at this time. Just get rid of everything that you have. And I think that's what's happening at the moment in the Western markets. People are just selling like crazy.
And there's only usually one door to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you hear about the fire in the Tesla factory in Germany?
No, tell me about that. I'll search for the story while you're talking about it.
Yeah, there was a sabotage in the Tesla factory yesterday. Big fire, and apparently those saboteurs have come forward and said they want Tesla to get out. They're causing too much pollution in Germany. So it looked like some sort of activist or something. And it happened a few hours after the pipeline, and it just seems it was really suspicious. Actually, it was a huge fire. It's going to cost Tesla probably millions to fix, and they had to shut their factories down as well. So yeah, I think a lot of stuff is happening around the world at the moment.
So there's the headline there. If you guys are just joining us now, AJ was mentioning about a Tesla plant fire in Germany. Of course, it says it's raising pollution fears, but environmental activists say a fire at Tesla's plant near Berlin is the latest incident that could pollute the area's water supply. Local residents are demanding that production is stopped at the Tesla plant in near Berlin after a fire broke out on the factory grounds. Firefighters on Monday took 5 hours to extinguish the fire with no injuries. The firefighters were called to an 800 cubic meter, 1,046 cubic yards of cardboard paper, wall scraps, blah, blah, blah. Wow. Is that it? Is that the video?
Yeah, I think so. Let me
just see if I can
but it seems like a lot of stuff happening around Germany. And if you're a business in Germany, I think you're in some serious danger. First of all, you don't have gas, you don't have the electricity. Then you have all of these activists attacking you. So it's not good. See, the whole building is gone.
Yeah, it's not good. Anyway, I mean, yeah. it wouldn't surprise me that we're going to start seeing a lot of crazy headlines here in the next few months, AJ. Really,
Yeah.
it's just terrible to see that what has happened to some of these economies that are just been beaten. I don't think, even with the seeing the S&P up at 3700 mark, you're stepping into a housing market now with mortgage rates that are through the roof. I mean, my friend's daughter, she kind of gambled on the mortgage where she had a floating, and she thought that they peaked in Canada about a year ago. Oops. And now her mortgage payment's gone up. It went up 600 6 months ago, and now it's up 1,400 on top of her initial payment, which now she's in the red. And the bank says, "Don't worry, everything will be fine. We will just add another 5 years onto your mortgage." Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's I think the average mortgage prices for UK, I mean, UK average house price is around 400, 500,000, which means an average person in UK will have to pay £300 to £400 a month because of these high interest rates. Because don't forget, you know,
And electricity
and electricity as well. Yeah, don't
and
forget,
gas.
you know, you don't when you come to paying your mortgage at a certain interest rate, you don't pay the interest rate that's on the system. The bank always adds an extra percent or 2% on top. So if the
Of
base
course.
rate is, 6 or 7%, the bank will charge you 8% or nine
If you
percent.
and that's if you have good credit.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it is quite high, and the Bank of England will know that they are going to increase interest rates in the future. So what they're doing now is they're stopping a lot. I think this morning they have cancelled so many mortgage applications. They've just literally cancelled them, and they said they put out some new rates now, and these new rates are they don't go to 8 9%. They are now doubling these new rates. They're going to 16%, 17%. Because the Bank of England knows that they are going to have to increase the interest rates over the next few days and maybe the next few weeks. Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, things are not looking good.
Mind blowing. Well, I think AJ, I want to just say thanks. I'm going to give you the last word here, so we can say thank you once again to everybody that's joining the stream this week. Next week, of course, we have holidays here in China. I will probably do a few streams. AJ, you're always invited to share one of the panels on the screen. I have
Yeah,
a live
sure.
stream, I think, coming up on Saturday morning, but it might be late your time. But I'm going to try to entice you to
Yeah, no problem.
join,
No
and
problem.
as well as we will. I've reached out to a couple other people as well. So yeah, I think we'll probably get Patrick Lancaster back on the program. I spoke with him. He has arrived in the Ukraine. He is currently in believe it was Donetsk. We spoke this morning about that. AJ, once again, thank you for bringing your audience onto the program today. My name is Alex. I'm in the wonderful iChongqing studio, and also if you want to see my alternative channel, which is Reporterfy Media, and of course. Check out our Rumble channel. If you're not a subscriber, you can go onto our Rumble channel at iChongqing. Just put iChongqing on Rumble and give us a subscription there. And I think, AJ, you want to tell your audience about what you're up to and what I think you've been building up your Rumble quite well and your local. So congratulations on that. I'll
Oh
give
yeah.
you the last word, and after we're done, we're not going to leave you guys high and dry. We'll give you guys a bit of music to say goodbye to everybody. But yeah, I'm going to hand the mic over to AJ. AJ, this is your floor. Go ahead, my friend. Thank you
Yeah,
very much again.
thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
Always a pleasure to speak to you.
you're welcome.
Nice conversation today. So yeah, I just want to give my thanks to all of people who have been listening, all of the moderators, of course. So thanks for that. I just really appreciate it. Yeah, quite a few people join my locals. It does help me become independent from YouTube. And yeah, so I really want to send out my thanks to everyone that's been supporting me and coming to listen to these chats and stuff. So I really appreciate it. So yeah, that's all I want to say for now. Oh, looks like Alex is gone. Anyway, guys,
Yeah,
I'll
no
see you
problem,
guys soon.
AJ.
Oh, there
We're
you
just
are.
gonna, yeah, we're gonna let everybody just enjoy a bit of music here, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, you guys take care. All right,
See you
thanks
guys.
again, everyone.